Welcome to Calm, Dreamy Sleep, a peaceful place where stories become dreams. Just relax and slowly close your eyes. Take a gentle breath in and let the day quietly drift away. If this story brings you peace, if you feel calmer, lighter, please subscribe and like. So let's start. There once lived a woodcarver deep in the forests of the northern hills. It was a land of tall pines and silver birches, of lakes that froze solid in winter, of snow that fell softly and stayed for months. The woodcarver was a gentle man, quiet and hardworking, and he had a daughter named Linnea. Linnea was a light in his life, a girl with a smile that could warm the coldest morning, with eyes the color of the winter sky, and a heart that was pure and good. She had grown up in that forest home with only her father for company and a great furry dog named Bjorn, who was her constant companion. Bjorn was enormous, with thick gray fur and eyes like pale ice. And though he looked like a wolf, he was the gentlest creature imaginable. He followed Linnea everywhere, slept at the foot of her bed, rested his great head on her knee when she sat by the fire, and loved her with a devotion that asked for nothing in return. When Linnea grew into a young woman, her father remarried. He had been alone for so long, and he wished for companionship in his later years. Linnea understood this, welcomed her new stepmother with an open heart, and hoped that the woman's daughter, a girl named Helga, might become a sister to her. But the stepmother was not kind. She was critical of everything, found fault where there was none, and she especially disliked Linnea. Not because Linnea had done anything wrong, but simply because Helga, her own daughter, could not compare to Linnea's goodness and grace. The harder Linnea tried to please her stepmother, the more the woman scolded her. Linnea's kindness, her patience, her gentle nature only seemed to make things worse. One autumn day, Linnea's father had to travel to a nearby settlement. He would be gone for 2 nights, delivering firewood before the deep cold set in. The stepmother packed him food for his journey, and Linnea hugged him tightly at the door, Bjorn sitting patiently at her heels. That afternoon, as Linnea sat reading in her small room beneath the eaves, she heard commotion from the kitchen. She came downstairs to find the front door wide open, cold air pouring into the house, and her stepmother wringing her hands. "Oh, Linnea," the woman said, "the wind blew the door open, and your dog ran off into the woods." Linnea looked around, called Bjorn's name, but he was nowhere to be found. Without stopping to put on a warmer coat, she grabbed a woolen shawl and ran outside. She searched the yard, called his name again and again, checked every shed and outbuilding. But Bjorn was gone. When she returned to the door, breathless and worried, her stepmother pointed toward the forest path. "He went that way," she said. "If you hurry, you might catch him." and Linnea ran. Ran without thinking, without preparing, without realizing that night was falling and the forest was deep and cold. She ran calling Bjorn's name, her voice growing hoarse, her feet carrying her deeper and deeper into the trees. But Bjorn was not in the woods. He was in the pantry, warm and content, finishing a pile of oatcakes that the stepmother had given him to keep him quiet while Linnea searched. Helga and her mother laughed together at their deception, and Linnea walked deeper into the forest, calling for a dog who was safe at home. The forest grew darker. The path she had been following disappeared beneath fallen leaves. The cold seeped through her thin shawl, through her dress, into her very bones. She realized, too late, that she was lost, and night was falling fast. She walked blindly through the twilight, over tree roots and around boulders, under low-hanging branches that scratched at her face and caught at her hair. Her teeth began to chatter. Her fingers grew numb. She knew she needed to find shelter, some place to wait out the night until daylight returned. Soon she came upon a small clearing, edged with thick evergreen trees whose branches swept down to the ground. She crawled beneath them, wrapping her shawl tighter around herself, and leaned back against a trunk. It was not comfortable, but it would have to be enough. She was just beginning to drift into an uneasy sleep when something strange happened. The air around her grew suddenly colder, much colder. Cold enough to pull her from her drowsing, cold enough to make her nose tingle and her eyes water. She turned, sensing a presence behind her, but saw nothing. When she turned back to the clearing, she could hardly believe her eyes. A figure stood there, tall, handsome, shimmering with light. He was moving his arms in slow arcs, left and then right, and as he did, the air around him sparkled with tiny fragments of light. They traveled away from his fingers on the wind. And wherever they landed, wherever they touched, new color appeared. Green boughs turned white. Grass became frosted. It was as if he was painting the forest, making it new. Linnea stared, her mouth open in wonder. And then he noticed her. He stopped his work, turned, and looked at her with surprise. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then he smiled. "Well," he said gently, "where did you come from?" Linnea found she could not speak. He was so beautiful, so strange, so full of light. Seeing she had no words, he folded his arms and considered her. Then he shook his head. "You cannot stay here," he said softly. "I am about to cover this entire forest in deep winter, and you will not find it comfortable for sleeping." Finally, Linnea found her voice. "I'm lost," she whispered. "I was looking for my dog, and now I don't know the way home." The man's expression softened. He regarded her for a moment longer, then shrugged. "All right then," he said. "I'll get on with my work. But if you become too cold, you must tell me." And he returned to the center of the clearing, spreading his arms wide, releasing more of that glittering magic into the night. the temperature dropped further. Icicles formed on the branches above. Snow began to fall, delicate at first, then thicker. Linnea's chin began to wobble. Her teeth chattered despite her best efforts to keep them still. The man turned, saw her, and stopped his work again. He strode back to where she sat, huddled beneath the trees. "You are freezing," he said gently. "You must go home." "I don't know the way," she whispered. He looked at her for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. Then he bowed, a formal gesture that seemed strange in this wild place. "I am the Winter King," he said. "I have dominion over snow and ice in these lands, and you, young lady, need my help." He offered her his hand. "My sleigh is nearby. There are blankets there and warm refreshments. Come with me." Linnea took his hand. His fingers were cool, but not cold, and his grip was gentle. He led her across the clearing, now white with fresh snow, to where a sleigh waited beneath the trees. It was beautiful, white and silver, pulled by a horse as pale as the falling snow. The Winter King opened the door and helped her inside. The interior was warm, lined with soft velvet seats and piled with blankets. Linnea wrapped herself in them gratefully, her shivering beginning to ease. The Winter King snapped his fingers, and a silver tray appeared, holding a steaming cup of spiced tea. Linnea accepted it with trembling hands, breathing in the warm scent of cinnamon and honey. "Thank you," she whispered. The Winter King smiled. He sat beside her in the sleigh, and the horse began to move, pulling them smoothly through the snowy forest. As they rode, Linnea told him her story about her father, her stepmother, her stepsister, Helga, about Bjorn, her faithful dog, and how she had run into the forest searching for him. The Winter King listened attentively, asking gentle questions now and then. When she described her home, the wooden cottage with its steep roof and carved window frames, he nodded slowly. "I know where that is," he said. "I will take you home." Linnea's heart swelled with gratitude. She looked at him, truly looked at him for the first time. His eyes were the color of winter sky, his hair pale as moonlight, and there was a kindness in his expression that warmed her more than any blanket. The sleigh ride was like a dream. The trees seemed to bow as they passed. The snow sparkled like diamonds, and the Winter King told her stories of his frozen kingdom, of northern lights and frozen lakes, and the quiet beauty of deep snow. Too soon, they arrived at her cottage. The Winter King helped her down from the sleigh. "Keep the blanket," he said gently. "You may need it again someday." Linnea walked to her door, turned back to look at him. He raised his hand in farewell, and then he was gone, the sleigh disappearing into the snowy darkness. When she opened the door, Bjorn rushed to greet her, tail wagging furiously. Linnea knelt and buried her face in his warm fur. She was home. Her stepmother and stepsister pretended to be relieved, but Linnea could see the disappointment in their eyes. They had hoped she would not return. But she had, and she had a beautiful blanket to prove it. In the weeks that followed, Linnea thought often of the Winter King. She dreamed of his smile, of the glittering magic that followed his hands, of the kindness in his winter-colored eyes. One morning, after a heavy snowfall, she opened the door to find a package on the step. It was wrapped in silver paper, tied with a blue velvet ribbon. Inside, she found a cloak of deep blue velvet, embroidered all over with tiny silver snowflakes. She held it to her cheek, felt its softness, and knew it was from him. Her stepmother was furious with jealousy, but Linnea only smiled. Another storm brought another gift. This time, boots of soft leather lined with warm wool, embroidered in beautiful patterns. They fit perfectly. Her stepsister Helga could bear it no longer. "I will go into the forest," she announced. "I will find this Winter King, and he will give me gifts too." Her mother agreed eagerly. They forced Linnea's father to take Helga into the woods and leave her there, just as they had tried to do with Linnea. Helga waited in the cold, calling out in what she thought was a helpless voice. But no Winter King appeared. She grew cold and cross and miserable. Finally, just as she was about to give up, she heard sleigh bells. The Winter King appeared, handsome and gleaming in the moonlight. "Lost, are you?" he asked. Helga simpered and fluttered her eyelashes, explaining how cold she was, how she needed his help. The Winter King looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "You may ride with me for a while," he said. Helga climbed eagerly into the sleigh, wrapped herself in the blankets, and waited for gifts and warm drinks. But none came. When she asked for refreshment, the Winter King handed her a cup of plain hot water and a slice of dry bread. Helga was outraged. "This is not what my sister received," she said. The Winter King looked at her, his expression cool. "Your sister has a kind and gentle heart," he said. "She came into the forest not for gifts, but for love of her dog. You came for what you could get. There is a difference." And he turned the sleigh toward home, depositing Helga at her door without ceremony or gift. Helga stormed inside, empty-handed and furious. But Linnea only smiled and hugged her close. She was glad her stepsister was safe. Spring came, and Linnea felt a sadness she could not name. With the melting of the snow, she knew the Winter King would return to his northern kingdom, and she might never see him again. But one morning in April, a late snow fell, covering everything in soft white. Linnea opened her door, and there he stood, the Winter King, waiting for her. In his hands, he held a box wrapped in purple cloth. "For you," he said gently. Linnea opened it with trembling fingers. Inside, nestled on soft velvet, was a circlet of crystals that sparkled like frozen starlight. She had never seen anything so beautiful. "I cannot accept this," she whispered. "I am only a woodcarver's daughter." The Winter King stepped closer. "You are the woman who has captured my heart," he said softly. "I have ruled the winter alone for so long, and I do not wish to be alone any longer." He knelt before her in the snow. "Linnea, will you be my wife? Will you be my queen and rule the winter by my side?" Linnea looked at him, at his kind eyes and gentle smile, at the love shining there. And she knew her answer. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes." They were married in his ice palace, in the land where snow never melts. Bjorn came too, and was the happiest dog in all the north. Warm and loved and fed oatcakes every day. And now, when you feel that first cold breeze of autumn, when you see the first snowflake fall, know that Linnea, the queen of winter, is near, watching over the world she loves, waiting for the time when she and her Winter King will return, to cover the earth in the magic of snow and ice once more. Thanks for listening. Our next story is The Three Brothers and Their Fox Neighbor. There was once a fox who bought himself a small house. It stood beneath an old maple tree at the edge of a forest, where the leaves in autumn turned from green to gold and red. The house had a slate roof, warm wooden walls, and a small garden where herbs grew thick and fragrant. A rose bush climbed up one wall, its last blooms still sweet in the cooling air. And on the door, there was a knocker in the shape of an acorn. The fox was content. He had spent years wandering, learning, working, and now he had a home of his own. Boxes were stacked everywhere, not yet unpacked, but he didn't mind. He had time. All the time in the world. From his kitchen window, he could see an old walnut tree in the backyard. And beyond that, the forest. As he stood there, washing his cups and putting them away, he saw something move among the trees. Something small and quick. He blinked, and it was gone. A little while later, he heard a noise, something moving through the underbrush. But when he looked, there was nothing there. The fox smiled to himself. The person who sold him the house had mentioned something about neighbors. 3 brothers, he had said, who had bought land in the forest. They were planning to build houses of their own. The fox had a wonderful idea. He knew a great deal about building and woodworking. He would go and introduce himself, offer his help if they needed it. He searched through his boxes until he found 3 beautiful wooden boxes, carved with leaves and berries, made by his own hands. Perfect housewarming gifts. He closed his front door behind him and walked into the forest. The path wound through the trees, sunlight filtering down like golden rain. The air smelled of warm earth and late summer flowers. He stopped to eat wild raspberries from a thicket, sweet and red, leaving plenty for the birds and other creatures. Soon he came to a sunny clearing. The grass was tall, and wildflowers of every color swayed in the breeze. Blue and purple, pink and yellow, all nodding to him as he passed. In the middle of the clearing, there were bundles of straw stacked high, and stakes in the ground, marking out the shape of a house. The fox studied this for a while. A house made of straw? How would one make a roof? How would one hold it together? But the fox was clever, and he had ideas. He began to work. He stacked the straw into a sturdy shape, weaving it tightly, creating walls that would keep out the wind and rain. When he was finished, he left one of his carved boxes in front of the door and continued on his way. The path led out of the clearing and back into the trees. Soon he heard the sound of a stream burbling cheerfully somewhere nearby. He followed the sound to a small clearing where a huge pile of branches waited. Young hazel branches, long and flexible, and a coil of strong twine. The fox measured the clearing with his quick steps. He did some careful thinking, and then he began to build. He created a round shape with the longest branches, wove them together at the top into a dome. He wove the smaller branches between them, leaving an opening for a door. He gathered moss from the stream bank, tucked it into the gaps to make the walls weather-tight. He wove a door and hung it in the opening. When he stepped back to admire his work, he smiled. The hazel branches would settle into the soil over winter. Come spring, they might even sprout new leaves, covering the house in soft green. It would be lovely. He left another carved box by the door and continued on his way. The path led him to a small wooden bridge over the stream. He stopped there for a while, watching small fish dart beneath the clear water, watching bees visit the late flowers, watching dragonflies hover and swoop, their wings catching the light. Then he crossed the bridge and walked on. Around a bend in the path, he found a young girl sitting on a fallen log. She wore a soft blue cloak with a hood. Beside her sat a basket filled with small cakes and sweet breads. She had her chin in her hand, looking thoughtful. When the fox appeared, she looked up and smiled. "Oh, hello," she said. "I'm trying to get to my grandmother's house, but I've forgotten something important. Was it that her house had moved? Or that it had turned into a pumpkin? Or maybe it was made of gingerbread?" The fox smiled kindly. "Perhaps," he said gently. "Your grandmother has moved into the village at the edge of the forest." The girl's face lit up. "That's it!" she cried. "Thank you, Mr. Fox." She offered him a small honey cake from her basket. Then she skipped away down the path, humming a sweet tune. The fox sat on the log and ate the cake. It was soft and sweet, with just a hint of honey and spice. It was perfect. He continued on his way. The path led to the edge of the forest, where a hill overlooked a small village. Here the path divided. One way led down to the village. The other curved along the forest edge toward a snug stone cottage. The fox took that path. As he approached, he caught a glimpse of movement in an upper window. He knocked on the door. The door opened, and there stood a young badger, dressed in a simple shirt and trousers. Behind him, two more badgers peered out, one in overalls, one in a knitted sweater. They all looked at the fox, and then they all smiled. "Are you the one?" the first badger asked. "The one who has been building such wonderful houses in the forest?" The fox nodded. The badgers began talking all at once, exclaiming over his work, thanking him, inviting him inside. The fox handed over his last carved box. The first badger took it gently, marveling at the delicate carving. They insisted he stay for supper. They carried a table outside into the garden, set it with a soft cloth embroidered with autumn leaves. They prepared a large salad from garden vegetables, a hearty mushroom pie, and sweet berry juice. They placed the fox's carved box in the center of the table, with a small candle burning inside it. As they ate, they told him their stories. The youngest badger, whose straw house the fox had built, had spent years learning about farming and growing things. He knew how to make things grow. He promised the fox the best of his garden harvest every year. The middle badger, whose hazel house the fox had built, loved the forest and all its creatures. He promised to show the fox the most beautiful places in the woods, the hidden glades and secret streams. The oldest badger, in whose stone cottage they now sat, was skilled at trading and selling. He promised to help the fox find buyers for his beautiful carvings. They raised their cups. "To new friends," they said, "to good neighbors, to the beginning of something wonderful." The sun began to set, casting golden light over the valley. The sky turned shades of rose and amber, soft clouds catching the last light. The new friends sat together, watching the sun sink below the horizon. And they knew, in their hearts, that this was the start of a beautiful friendship. Lily White. I hope you're enjoying our tales. Let's start our next story. Long ago, in a kingdom where winter lingered long, a queen sat by her window. She watched the snowflakes drift lazily to the ground, and she thought about her life. She had a kind husband, a beautiful home, faithful servants who cared for her. She had almost everything she could wish for. Almost. What she did not have was a child. She gazed across the castle gardens to the dark forest beyond, and in a quiet moment, she spoke her wish to the falling snow. "I would like a daughter," she whispered, "with skin as fair as snow, hair as dark as winter wood, and lips the color of holly berries." In that time, in that place, such wishes sometimes came true. Not long after, she held in her arms a perfect baby girl. They named her Lily White, for it was the winter that had brought her to them. But the good queen did not live to see her daughter grow. She passed away when Lily White was still small, and the king was left alone with his precious child. He did his best to be a good father, and Lily White grew and flourished in his care. She was lovely, it was true. But more importantly, she was kind. She made friends with the kitchen maids, helped the gardener weed his beds, sat and talked with the old nurse who had cared for her since birth. The castle was her whole world, and she loved everyone in it. When Lily White was 14, her father remarried. His new wife was beautiful, with hair like spun gold and skin like cream. But she was cold and proud and envious. She did not love Lily White. She saw the girl as a rival, a threat to her own place. Quietly, in small ways, she began to push her aside. No new dresses, no lessons, no outings. Instead, Lily White was given tasks. She became, in truth, a servant in her own home. Her father, busy with the cares of ruling, noticed nothing. The queen had a secret. She had studied old magic, and she used it for her own purposes. She had a silver mirror, an ordinary-looking thing, but when she stood before it at night and spoke certain words, it would answer her. "Mirror, mirror in my hand," she would say, "who is the fairest in the land?" And the mirror would answer, "You, my queen, are fairest of all." This pleased her greatly. For years, the mirror gave her the answer she wanted. But on the night of Lily White's 16th birthday, everything changed. The king had insisted on a special dinner for his daughter. Reluctantly, the queen had provided a new gown, and Lily White, despite the queen's best efforts to choose a dull color, had looked absolutely radiant. That night, the queen stood before her mirror. "Mirror, mirror in my hand," she said, "who is the fairest in the land?" The mirror was silent for a moment. Then it spoke. "My queen, your beauty still shines bright, but the fairest is Lily White." The queen was filled with rage. She had always known this day might come, but knowing did not make it easier to bear. Lily White would have to go. While the king was away on business, the queen put her plan into action. She enchanted a young servant, instructed her to take Lily White deep into the forest on the pretext of gathering mushrooms. Lily White, trusting as always, went willingly. The servant rode with her on a single horse, deeper and deeper into the woods. When they could go no further, the servant pointed down into a hollow. "The best mushrooms grow there," she said. Lily White dismounted, basket in hand, and climbed down. When she looked back, the servant and the horse were gone. She was alone, lost in the deep, dark forest. She walked for hours. The afternoon faded into evening. Her fingers grew numb. Her feet grew cold. Her heart grew heavy. Just when she thought she could go no further, she saw a light through the trees. A small house. She stumbled toward it, knocked on the door, and when no one answered, she pushed it open. Inside, it was dark and chilly. But as her eyes adjusted, she saw a long table with 7 chairs, and along the walls, 7 small beds. There was wood by the hearth. She built a fire, warming her frozen hands. There was bread on the table. She ate a small piece, hungrily. And then, overcome with weariness, she lay down on one of the beds, just to rest for a moment. And she fell into a deep, peaceful sleep. Late that night, the owners of the house returned. 7 small men, miners who worked in the hills, coming home from their labors. They found a fire burning in their hearth, and the girl sleeping in one of their beds. They gathered around her, whispering among themselves. She was so lovely, so peaceful. They decided she must be harmless. They let her sleep. In the morning, Lily White woke to find 7 small faces watching her. She was frightened at first, but the little men were kind. She told them her story, and they, being kindly souls, offered her a home. She stayed with them through the winter. She cleaned their house, she washed their clothes, she cooked their meals. The little men, in return, taught her many things. The eldest among them gave her lessons each evening, teaching her to read old books, to understand poetry, to work with numbers. She grew not only more lovely, but wiser too. Back at the castle, the queen consulted her mirror again. Mirror, mirror in my hand, who is the fairest in the land? The mirror answered, my queen, your beauty still shines bright, but the fairest is Lily White, living with the 7 little men, deep in the forest. The queen was furious, but she was also determined. She disguised herself as an old woman selling ribbons and lace, took an enchanted hairpin, and set out for the forest. She found the little house. She called out, offering her wares. Lily White, innocent and curious, came to the gate. The queen showed her the hairpin, sparkling with pretty colors. Try it in your hair, she urged. It will look so lovely. Lily White could not resist. She placed the pin in her dark hair, and instantly she fell to the ground as if asleep. The queen hurried away, laughing. That evening, the little men found Lily White lying in the garden. They gathered around her, sad and frightened. But one of them noticed the pin in her hair, pulled it out, and Lily White opened her eyes. She was alive. The little men warned her to be careful. Someone was trying to harm her. She must not accept anything from strangers. Lily White promised she would be careful. But the queen, consulting her mirror again, learned that her plan had failed. She disguised herself again, this time as a farmer's wife, and took a poisoned apple. Only half was poisoned. The other half was safe. She found Lily White in the garden, picking herbs. You must be thirsty, she said. Would you like an apple? Lily White shook her head. I cannot accept gifts from strangers, she said. The queen smiled. "Watch," she said. She cut the apple in half and ate the safe half herself, smiling as she chewed. Lily-White hesitated, but the woman had eaten it herself. It must be safe. She took the other half, took a small bite, and fell to the ground, still as stone. This time, when the little men found her, they could find nothing wrong. No pin, no ornament. They lifted her, heavy with grief, to carry her inside. One of them stumbled on the step. She was jostled gently, and the piece of apple lodged in her throat came loose. She coughed, sat up, and opened her eyes. The little men wept with joy. They warned her again, more firmly this time. No gifts, no matter how safe they seem. Lily-White promised. But the queen, consulting her mirror once more, learned that Lily-White still lived. This time, she would not fail. She took a plain silver bracelet, thin and simple, and enchanted it. To any who looked upon it, it appeared to be a beautiful jeweled thing, sparkling with every color imaginable. But to those who were not human, it appeared as it truly was. She crept to the little house in the dark of night and placed the bracelet in Lily-White's beloved herb garden. The next morning, Lily-White came to gather herbs for supper. She saw something glittering among the rosemary. She picked it up, and it was the most beautiful bracelet she had ever seen. Before she could think, before she could remember her promises, she slipped it on her wrist and fell to the ground. This time, when the little men found her, they could find no cause, no pin, no apple. They gathered around her, hearts breaking. Surely, this time, she was gone. Just then, a young man appeared at the gate. He had been passing through the forest for weeks, stopping to talk with Lily-White, helping her in the garden, sharing stories with her. He loved her, and now she lay before him, still and pale. He knelt beside her, took her hand in his, and on her wrist, he saw the bracelet. "Where did this come from?" he asked the little men. They looked at her wrist. They saw only a thin band of silver, but the young man saw jewels, sparkling and beautiful. One of the little men reached down and pulled the bracelet from her wrist. Lily-White drew a deep breath. Her eyes fluttered open, and she was alive. The young man gathered her in his arms. He told her he was a prince from a neighboring kingdom. He told her he loved her. He asked her to be his wife. Lily-White, looking into his kind eyes, said yes. Meanwhile, the servant whom the queen had enchanted could no longer bear her guilt. She went to the king and told him everything. The king, filled with rage and grief and hope, rode into the forest himself. He found his daughter, alive and well and happy. He wept with joy. The queen, when she learned what had happened, fled the castle in fear. No one ever saw her again. Lily White and her prince were married on a beautiful spring morning. The 7 little men attended, dressed in their best clothes. The king danced at the wedding, happy for the first time in years. And Lily White, the fairest in the land, lived happily ever after. Let yourself drift now. Drift like snow falling on a winter's evening. Drift like leaves floating on a gentle stream. Drift like dreams coming softly to carry you away. There is nothing you need to do tonight. Nothing you need to solve. Nothing you need to carry. Just rest. Just breathe. Just be. Feel the soft support beneath you, holding you, keeping you safe. Hear the sound of my voice, like a friend sitting beside you in the darkness, watching over you, caring for you, guiding you gently toward dreams. The night is soft. The night is kind. The night is holding you in its gentle arms. Sleep is waiting, waiting with open arms, waiting to welcome you home. Let yourself go now. Let yourself fall gently, like a leaf falling from a tree in autumn, like a snowflake drifting down in the quiet hours before dawn, like a whisper becoming silence. Sleep deeply. Sleep peacefully. Sleep sweetly. Good night, dear one. Good night.